Death Stranding has been a game shrouded in mystery for years. It's the first game from Hideo Kojima and Kojima Productions after their disbandment from Konami in 2015. Since that dramatic partnership broke up, Sony have effectively adopted Kojima and backed him in developing a new game separate from the Metal Gear franchise that's shackled him for a lot of years. And it's effectively given him a blank canvas to do whatever he wants. Death Stranding was originally revealed at a Sony E3 conference way back in 2016. And while a 3-year development cycle isn't out of the ordinary for games these days, Death Stranding has been a game we've been wondering about ever since it was revealed. Nobody's known what it's about. Nobody knows how it plays. It's a game that's just raised tons of questions the more and more we've seen of it. And that was until at least we played it last week when it launched on October 8th, 2019. So I just want to welcome everybody to what we're calling 1 Week Stranded, where I'm joined by Matty and Cash. And we've all been playing the game for a week now. And this is really just our initial impressions of this strange game. So guys, thanks for joining me to go through this. We haven't really talked a whole lot about it. We've kind of mentioned bits and pieces to each other on the chat over the week, but we haven't sat down and really discussed what we think of it. Even to the point where I'm not really sure what you guys are going to say about it in terms of whether you're going to be hot on this, whether you're going to be cold on it, whether you enjoyed it, or whether you're kind of just playing it to get through an obligation because you've sunk a little bit of your own money into it. So this is going to be spoiler free because I am still fairly early into the game. Cash, I don't think you're too much further than I am, but Matty, you are. Well, it sounds like you may have finished it or close to being finished. So it's going to be spoiler free. This is really just our initial impressions, and we will probably come back and do another full roundup and final impressions video or roundtable review video once we are finished, so maybe in a couple of weeks. But guys, what's your initial impression of Death Stranding?
Well, thanks for having me and Matty. Great title for the podcast. I don't know how long it took you. I suppose that's the beauty of this game. Whilst you're in between deliveries, you've got plenty of time to think and consider the future.
That's the irony of this. That one actually came really quickly. It's when I put effort in that it just goes nowhere.
So my initial impressions, as you say, got the game on Friday. Went straight in, kind of with open mind. This is, as you say, Hideo Kojima's first game after the shackles of Konami being lifted from him. He's kind of known for his philosophies, his ideas, and putting kind of strong themes and strong political themes as well into games. And the run up to this game, it was mentioned he would have a lot of social commentaries about building bridges and building connections with the world. The BBC did a kind of filler piece as well, where he mentioned Brexit and Donald Trump as part of, the antithesis to this game and the nature of this game as well. So it just kind of went in just to see kind of what would be done and what would be like. Trailers as well. They look really good on trailers using the Decimate engine, which looked fantastic on the Horizon Zero Dawn game. And so far, I'm enjoying it. I'm pleasantly surprised by the gameplay. Can go kind of into the finer details about that, but my initial impression is it has me hooked. I go to work and I go away from the game thinking, okay, what I'm going to do next? I'm going to go back into the game. How am I going to kind of carry on? I've got kind of planning certain routes, planning certain things in my head. I'm looking back at things in hindsight 2020. I'm thinking I could have done this better, I could have done that better. I can do this to kind of help me out more. And yeah, I'm really enjoying it, and it's a very different game to kind of a lot of the stuff that's currently out there, and I think a lot of stuff that I have personally played quite recently.
That's a key point you made right at the end there. It definitely does feel different from a lot of the big budget releases, which there aren't too many of these days because game development takes longer. This game came at the right time for me, with having time off work, a week off work or so.
Yeah, you really tended to perfection, really, whether it was intentional or not.
Oh no, it was. I had no idea which week I'd get off work. But it's, what, this game has completely consumed me. And I kind of approached this game with a bit of skepticism. I think I'd said to you in the chat that before the game was released, I was looking at the preview footage going like, like this looks like a bit of a chore, or this just looks like something that didn't excite before release. And then when the reviews came out, there was a big sort of backlash on forums and on the internet and stuff, and a lot of divisiveness, and there was even like a lot of, as I like to call it, a fucking hate boner for like for everything Kojima, and it just went to shit. There was, and so that this game had a kind of weird aura around it, in the sense that I approached it thinking, well, whatever this game is, I just want to see it. And if it doesn't click with me, then at least I can put my stamp on it and say I've done it.
You've given it a try. You've given it your all.
Yeah, because I mean, look, I'm not right. The thing is, like a lot of us, I love Metal Gear Solid, and yes, Kojima is all over that series. He's well known for inserting his name inside the game quite often.
Especially in the case of the Phantom Pain, which his mini mission credit sequences.
And I get that, a lot of the criticism against him is that he comes off as very arrogant or very self-obsessed. He up his own arse, as an expression.
I think he walks a fine line. I think he's somebody who is an auteur, which you don't get many of those in the games industry, just because of the financial, the financial cost of making games that you mentioned just before, against the commercial return. He's somebody who's always managed to be that kind of artistic visionary, and also have a financial hit on his hands with Metal Gear. But
he's definitely kind of unique within that sort of video game space.
There's nobody quite like him, and nobody makes games quite like him. But at the same time, when you listen to interviews for him, especially when he's doing the Browns, and especially in the case of Death Stranding's press tour, he comes out with some things that are, as you say, make him sound like he is a little bit up his own arse. I think sometimes it's lost in translation, because obviously a lot of his interviews are in Japanese. I think sometimes he knows to a degree that he sounds a little bit pompous at times, but at the same time, I think there is a little bit of pompousness to his character, and a little bit of kind of, self-obsession, self-indulgence about his work.
I don't really, to be honest with you, I don't mind if his head is lodged right up his arse, as long as, from my point of view, it's what he creates. And this video game is very much a Kojima. It's got Kojima elements stamped all over it, from everything you play in it. It definitely feels like there's no mistaking it's a Kojima game.
Yeah, I mean, it has a lot of themes, because I'm a huge Metal Gear Solid fan. There's a lot of themes that carry over, and a lot of gameplay elements that carry over from the Metal Gear Solid games, without kind of being explicit about what they are. But there's definitely kind of some similarities and familiarization there as well. So I'm sure that's still kind of, something hard for Kojima to shake off, and at the same time try and, make his own mark in the world, rather than being under the guise of somebody else. So yeah, I mean, I've tried very hard not to kind of name specifics, because without trying to be very spoilery, but I mean, sticking on the theme of kind of social commentaries and building bridges, one of the overriding themes of the Metal Gear Solid series was the boss's will, and to unify the world, and to bring the whole world together and make it as one. And
it's that kind of anti-nuke, pro-peace message, isn't it? Really, this is. That was always kind of at the heart of the Metal Gear games, despite being a game that was very rooted in kind of military role play. It really indulged in military side. It was anti-war at the same time.
Oh, it absolutely was anti-war, and it was quite a kind of significant thing. I can only think of, is it Spec Ops: The Line? That kind of did something similar, in that it was something very, very deep into kind of military code and military antics, but there was kind of a very anti-military theme, or a very kind of powerful. I
think as well.
The
game has been in development since 2016 did it start, or when we first saw So
That's when it was first revealed, so it would have been in a little bit before. So when he left Konami, he did a little bit of. I remember there was news stories coming out, like he was doing a bit of like a pilgrimage. He was going around the world, visiting game studios. Yeah, he was basically shopping for tech. I get the impression of making connections, and obviously he settled on the Decima engine, which is Guerrilla Games' PlayStation proprietary engine. That's the word I was looking for. Thank you, Cash. And they've obviously gifted to him. There's something like 100 Guerrilla Games staff credited on Death Stranding. So this is something that's
I remember saying
a lot of help making.
They send a lot of people over there to kind of help them out and get them familiar with the engine and to help out with little nooks and stuff. One thing that engine did fantastically was the environment and just really simple things like the grass and the hills and the mountains and the level of detail and the draw distance and the lighting. And that's carried over here. I mean, when I saw kind of the initial gameplay of the game, I got very strong kind of Iceland vibes, that kind of scenery.
Yeah.
And even
that's
kind
one thing that I find weird about this game. So it's very much about America. Let's go across America on a road trip. That's kind of the backdrop of this game. Yet it looks like you're on a holiday in Scotland.
It's
never
it's
once
like
does
America.
it look like America.
I don't know how much you guys have read into like the emails and the extra stuff, but it kind of, in a sense, explains some of that or kind of alludes as to why that might be.
Right.
No, I don't really want to go into kind of. I mean, it's not really spoiler territory when you kind of make the connection. Like, okay, is that it? That kind of makes sense. But there's
a lot of good lore and sort of a lot of those, as you were saying there, Cash, like the emails and stuff. There's a lot of good reading in there. It's not just a throwaway, thing on the side.
The trouble, the one thing I'd say, I mean, first of all, just to throw my hat in the ring, I'm enjoying this game far more than I thought I would. Ever since it was revealed, I've kind of kept one eye of it. I've never got excited about it because it was always a case of the worst aspects of the Phantom Pain were the fact that it wasn't finished. And I always kind of suspected that it wasn't finished because Kojima spent so much time of that developing that game, adding new ideas into the main game that he never actually finished it before Konami just said, enough's enough. We're running out of money. Get it out the door. And Kojima, off the leash, I was always kind of like, this could be a disaster. But again, it's always been an interesting game. When the reviews came out and were very mixed, you said it yourself, Matty, like there was a bit of a hate boner going on, but I think that's like anything with the games and the internet. There's always kind of like a contrarian position a lot of people take. People are looking forward to this. It's mainstream. It's big. It mustn't be good.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people have a lot of passion for Kojima's creations, Metal Gear Solid mainly.
I think a lot of people were hoping he would fail because it's something a bit controversial and it's a bit like, oh, well, he did fuck up. And, there's always a little bit of drama to it. But I was very hesitant this game, looking at the trailers and the names of all the characters and the fact that it's meant to be very philosophical, but philosophy at a high school level, stretched over like 60 hours of gameplay. That was kind of the words coming out of these initial reviews. I was less than thrilled. To the point where I didn't buy this digitally. I bought it physically because there was always something in the back of my head that I was like, if it is like that, at least I can trade it in. But I must say, I'm probably about somewhere between 12 and 15 hours into the game, and I really like it. Surprisingly so.
The game is brilliant.
It's weird. I mean, it's what we were saying before. It's such a unusual idea.
It's bizarre, and I don't think we've really touched on it. But I think my initial opinion is I am liking this game far more than I thought I would. And I suppose just to kind of frame the discussion around it. If we talk a little bit about story first, and I don't want to go into spoiler territory because we are fairly early into the game. Well, maybe reasonably early, but in terms of the setup for this game, because it's odd, it's very, very deep in its own lore. It feels like I read a lot of fantasy books, and it feels like a really impenetrable fantasy book in terms of its lore. Like you've got to be in on the ground floor, willing just to take information in that's not explained, and go along for the ride, hoping it gets explained later down the line.
And even a lot of what is explained can be a lot to take in. You've got to kind of pay attention.
Yeah, I
But
mean, so
There's always duality in meanings, and there's always kind of red herrings, and there's always kind of smoke and mirrors and things. I think until you hit the end and maybe replay some parts of the game, you probably never really kind of fully appreciate or fully get it on the first time running. But yeah, I mean, like I said, there's always little hit bits and little tids out there to kind of whet your appetite a bit and give a bit more kind of structure, a bit more background. But you're always kind of alluded to something. There's always kind of something at the end of a stick. You're never really given the kind of the full context or the full detail. And it's that's from the very beginning as well, where you just kind of
it is.
You don't get any kind of introduction. You just go straight into walking and delivering.
So I mean, the premise of the game is you are a guy called Sam Porter Bridges, who is a courier in a post-apocalyptic world. The apocalypse has taken the form of the world of the living and the world of the dead colliding, causing dead things, spirits, ghosts, monsters, I don't know what you want to call them, called beach things, that gets shortened to BTs, to flood into our
BT
world.
stood for?
Yeah.
Oh man,
Jesus Christ, man, you're the one who's furthest into the game.
Oh my goodness, man.
I thought it might be something more complex than that.
So basically, humanity has been decimated by these BTs, these ghosts, primarily because they hunt the living for whatever reason. They're just unhappy that they're dead. Maybe I don't think it's really explained to me yet. But they're invisible. The only thing you can see of these things are their footprints, which are like claw-like, animal-like footprints in the ground that you can only see when they're on the hunt for you.
Seems to be more handprints, I'd say.
Yeah, they've got like claws on the end of them, though.
They're really quite spooky, though, being around them, especially when you first start the game.
Yeah, they're intimidating at first. But yeah. So the world has been decimated, and primarily BTs are dangerous not because they necessarily hunt out humans and attack them. It's more because of what happens when a BT touches a living thing.
A void out.
Yeah, it creates this event called a void out, which is effectively a nuclear explosion. Like, let's not beat around the bush. That's what it's like an analogy for. At the heart of most Japanese media, it's like anti-nuclear sentiment, and that this feels like that aspect of it here. So not only is it a case of if BTs touch the living, a void out happens, a nuclear explosion happens. Anything that dies must be incinerated because it will become a BT and cause a void out. So basically, we're in this world where like anyone who dies needs to be controlled, and you've got these like monster ghosts chasing people around. Not only that, this fusion of the land of the dead and the land of the living has introduced a phenomenon called timefall. So now, when it rains, the rain speeds up time to dangerous proportions. It can age things, from somebody in their 20s to dead in a matter of moments. So anytime it rains, you have to take shelter or keep dry, and it's like a constant threat. And I don't know if you guys have noticed, but one thing that's really nice is that when it rains, plants like grow and die, then grow again
they accelerate,
constantly.
Yeah, there's a lot of little things that kind of show you that the rain falling is having an effect on the world. From like you say, the plants growing and dying almost instantaneously to the packages that you're carrying as well. They start to deteriorate, and there's kind of other little things as well that happen, especially if you are unfortunate enough to come into contact with one of the BTs as well. I don't know if you guys have.
So it's fair to say that as well, the BTs come with the rain. It's almost like the rain thins the barrier between worlds and allows them in.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I don't think I've seen BTs without timefall happening.
No, I think they are one and the same. It's almost like you say a portal or their way through kind of this world, from the land of the dead to the land of the living. And I think I suspect that's probably why they want to kind of make connections with the land of the living, because they want to go back to living again rather than being dead and wherever that horrible place is on this beach that is referred to.
But I mean, I safe to say we don't know because the game hasn't explained it to us, and whether it will or not, I don't know. Matt, you might know,
I'm saying nothing.
That's complete conjecture at the moment.
Yeah.
But I mean, basically, that's the setting. Basically, this apocalyptic world where the dead can cause nuclear explosions and the rain ages you, and you are a delivery boy. because it's so dangerous to go out into the wilderness because of all these hazards. You are basically. Have you ever seen that movie, The Postman, with Kevin Costner?
The greatest movie ever made.
Exactly. If you haven't seen it, do yourself a favor and keep avoiding it.
This is literally the game of that, yeah.
It is, yeah, and it's weird. And the setting, you know, I say it's like a really lore heavy fantasy book where it talks about things like BTs and something called the Beach. And it talks about these things as if they are established things that these characters understand and know about, and you don't. And as I mentioned before, I'm kind of just hoping, I'm happy to go along with things like that, but I just hope that these things are elaborated on in some way and explained and have a payoff in the end. But it's really dense right up front.
Man, it's very difficult. It's very difficult to not say things.
I don't know if it's going to be like Dark Souls where the law is there, but you have to kind of dig through every little nook and cranny for a YouTuber to then, you know, get $1,000 a month Patreon to then collect together and watch the video. Yeah. I don't think it's going to be like that. I can only imagine there will be some explanation to it. Maybe not a complete payoff, but at least something to kind of, you know, bridge the gaps.
Well, I mean, like, I hope it's not like Dark Souls, because the beauty of Dark Souls is the meat of the game is the gameplay. And the gameplay here, which we will go into next, is unique and somewhat and very satisfying. At least personally,
it shouldn't work. It shouldn't work. It shouldn't be something that is worth doing or worth your time or, like you say, Ben, satisfying.
If you went into any game company and described the gameplay, just literally the gameplay, nothing else about the themes or the story or the setting or who's making it, I think you'd probably be laughed out of 100 rooms out of 100.
And it's only because of Kojima being up his arse, as people like to say, and because of him having so much weight behind him and so much potential for following, that the business suits can look at him and say, yes, we can market this game as being fucking batshit Kojima stuff.
Yeah, and that's a good thing because
he can do it, and it's
absolutely, it's a good thing. It's refreshing because, I mean, like you say, it's very different to any game I personally played recently for many years. And then what this will hopefully do is give rise to kind of companies willing to kind of experiment a bit more with some of their games and, you know, kind of think outside the box and not kind of churn out the run-of-the-mill games that maybe we've been seeing time after time. So it's good. And like I say, I am quite happy with the game. I'm very happy with the game, actually. I am really into it.
What I was going to say is I hope this isn't like Dark Souls in that where the gameplay is the meat of it, and then the lore is kind of nice dressing, and the deep lore is there if you look for it. Primarily because this game has me sit and watch like hour-long cutscenes on a fairly regular basis. It's kind of the opposite of what Dark Souls is. So I really hope it has something to say in those hour-long cutscenes rather than making me go and looking for it in text files.
Well, yeah, that's exactly what I would expect as well. I mean, Metal Gear Solid, again, just to kind of go back to it, I mean, some of the criticism of the game was just you'd kind of go through, especially number 4, you'd kind of have like half an hour, 45 minutes.
Oh, this is not number 4. This is nothing like Metal Gear Solid 4.
No. You'd have a 45-minute cutscene and then maybe 5 minutes of gameplay, and it's just.
I mean, to be fair, it's not a meme level of Metal Gear Solid 4 cutscenes, but it's a far cry from the brevity of Phantom Pain either. Like, these are fairly meaty cutscenes. There's definitely, in the early part of the game, there is definitely like a 45-minute cutscene or something close to that early in the game where you are just kind of getting things set up and like why you're going out to do what you're going to do and what the premise of the game is and what the driver is. There's definitely a lengthy section where you are barely playing this, and it's very early on. I think the first 2 hours of the game, you're probably playing the game for half an hour and watching it for an hour and a half.
Yeah, but I think this is a good balance in between, like you said, the scarcity of explanation and story in Metal Gear Solid and the 5 and the Phantom Pain, and then this kind of the overarchingness or the complete saturation of it in Metal Gear Solid 4. So, I mean, so far, like I say, most of the way through Chapter 3, it's been good. It hasn't been too overbearing.
I think after that initial 2 hours, it definitely balances out better. In a way, the biggest criticism around the story or how you play it in the initial areas is pacing. It's really front loaded with cutscenes, and then when you get to kind of chapter 2, chapter 3, the game kind of just says, off you go and play the game now. I'm not going to really bother you too much. There's not really going to be a lot of story.
I will say that this is not like the Phantom Pain, where that game was very much like front loaded, and then towards the end, it became obvious that development was stopped abruptly, and it was very kind of empty at the end. And there wasn't. It's not that at all. There is.
No.
It's there are things you will see, and you will learn a lot.
Before we start going on to this, we mentioned a little bit of gameplay. If then,
Yes,
as our esteemed host, we'd like to talk a little bit more.
Yeah, so gameplay is, I mean, we've alluded to it anyway. Gameplay is unusual. I mean, at its heart, this is a third-person action adventure game with a heavy slant towards stealth. Except I say all that, but this is a game in that vein that de-emphasizes the action parts of what you'd expect. This is effectively an open world style game, kind of akin to something like Horizon Zero Dawn in terms of, they're using the same engine. The environment is effectively something akin to the Scottish Highlands, which we said before. Although it does diversify. There's mountains and rivers and valleys and moorland and all the rest of it. But basically, the general gameplay is you are walking along and you carry various parcels and packages on your person, and you've got to take them from point A to point B. And you've got to get there in the quickest, safest fashion, and keep your packages in the best condition for the maximum number of points. You get access to a range of equipment and vehicles in order to do that. And other than that, there's a lot of walking.
Yeah, it's traversing the terrain, isn't it?
Yes.
It's a lot of small things that you have to monitor throughout a delivery, that again shouldn't work, but it just does.
Well, that's it, Maddie. I mean, that my description there is a very flippant kind of high level view. The reason why this works is because there is it works, in my opinion, is there's a lot of systems overlaying on this kind of walking simulator gameplay. First of all, there's a little bit of variety in terms of what you'll be doing, because you can come up against BTs, you can come up against human enemies who both present very, very different kind of obstacles. I would say that I don't think any of the enemies in this game are particularly effective.
No.
BTs,
you can just beat the shit out of them.
So, like, the human enemies are effectively other couriers like you who've gone bad and try to steal your packages.
There's a bit of explanation earlier on in the game about them being
there is
addicted to delivering items. It's crazy.
It's a social media addiction commentary, isn't it? There's a lot of metaphor in this game. But all I ever do with them is let them catch me and then beat the shit out of them.
Yeah.
All you do is mash square until they're unconscious. Because nobody dies in this game, because that would cause a void out. You don't kill anybody.
Well, I'm glad you said that, because I don't want to really. I don't know if I would consider that spoilery to say you don't really kill anyone. But again, this is kind of another part of the gameplay that's really refreshing. A game that actively discourages and completely prevents somebody from killing.
You're not meant to kill them. Yeah, you're discouraged from doing it.
Exactly. If you think like GTA, and kind of the idea was if you killed a civilian or a non-enemy, you'd get the police on you. That's not really kind of a disincentive to kill people. It's just kind of a method to be clever about it. Whereas here, you literally can. I've tried to use vehicles. I've tried to drown people. You can tell I've just had plenty of time in between stuff.
And I just haven't managed just normal things.
I haven't managed to be able to do it. So yeah, and as you say, that's kind of woven into the story as well. So it's kind of a good reason. And it's this whole antithesis to kind of what we've been playing recently and what we kind of define as a standard game. Go from point A to point B, kill enemies along the way. It's really quite refreshing, and it took me a while to kind of understand and to fully appreciate. But now I can see kind of why they went with that as well. Like you said, it early on is very easy to kind of handle the couriers. It does get more tricky later on without kind of spoiling things for you. And you do get kind of gadgets and items to help you out with that.
I don't know if it does get harder. From what I've seen, I fought what I assume are like stronger, upgraded versions of these human enemies. But all you do is hold the shoulder buttons down and press the melee button, and you do a shoulder barge, which just disrupts any block they have ever thrown into my way. and then you can just mash square and knock them out again. And on top of that, like you say, you get other items that just let you dominate these human enemies. Like
the human enemies aren't the challenge in the delivering. They're kind of there as an annoyance more than
yes, they're a consideration. They're an obstacle rather than a. But as a mobile enemy type, I don't think any of the enemies in this game are very good. The other enemies being the BTs, which is like the stealth aspect of the game where you've got to sneak through, try to avoid them, which is hard when they're invisible, but you have means of kind of trying to detect them. But if you come into contact with one, they'll chase you down. If they grab you, it's kind of a bit meh. It's they wrestle with you, try to pull you into like a pool of oil, drag you down to hell. Basically, it's like that. It's like the movie Drag Me to Hell, if you ever remember that. And you wrestle with them, and if you manage to shake them off, that's kind of the end of it. And if they drag you down, it doesn't really matter anyway, because there's things in the story that mean you don't cause a void out.
Yeah, the convenient kind of characteristic. Or
I mean, to be fair, not that I've done this, but I understand that if you do, I've always managed to, on the few occasions I've had a BT attack me, I've always managed to escape. But I have heard that if you do get quote unquote killed by one, it leaves like a Terminator-esque kind of crater in the ground. You know, when the Terminator comes back from time, like a time bubble. Apparently, you leave like something like that. It's like a mini void out, but not a full nuclear explosion. I've never had it happen to me.
Well, I mean, there's something that happens before then. So if you do get dragged all the way down, you don't die. There is kind of something else after that, because I've had the pleasure of being hit by it. It's really quite something. It's quite exhilarating. It's really suspenseful. My adrenal levels were going through the fucking roof as it was happening as well. But you do get items to help you out, and that's kind of what saved me back then. But it's pretty crazy what happens, and it's very.
Well, I think I know what you're getting at, because a friend at work mentioned that to me. God, it's like talking fucking riddles, talking about this without trying to go into detail.
It is.
But that's the other thing, though. Beyond the VTs being fairly easy and ineffectual, if they do come into direct conflict with you, once you're about 4 or 5 hours, maybe 6 hours at most into this game, you get weapons you can use against them. Now, we said we don't kill people, but you can sure as shit kill ghosts.
Yep. I am afraid of no ghosts pretty much after the end of chapter 1. You get kind of a lot of tools and stuff to your arsenal. I mean, it's kind of strange, because we're essentially saying there's no risk of anything to you, because you effectively cannot die, cannot really.
Here's where the challenge comes in, and this is especially later game and where I'm up to, should I say. All of this is not a big risk to you as a player, but it is a risk to your deliveries and to meeting those standards.
That's exactly the game, because that's where the risk and reward lays in. It's not you as the player or as a character or as kind of anybody in and around you. It's your delivery, your packages. It could be the fucking Amazon Prime delivery or something that you're expecting. That's the biggest kind of risk. And failing to deliver that package. I mean, I was having a joke with someone at work. You can just imagine a Royal Mail officer kind of coming home after a day's work. He's like, you know what I really like now? A couple of hours of best finding, just deliver some packages.
It's like a training manual for those seasonal Amazon delivery people over Christmas. I
think this is probably. I think Jeff Bezos has supplied 60% of the funding for this game as well, with hopes to kind of improve Amazon's image. I'm surprised there is no kind of FedEx or UPS or Royal Mail kind of adverts or themes and uniforms, and maybe later on. I haven't seen anything yet.
They couldn't compete with Monster Energies for
that's it.
Yeah. So this, I mean, for me, this game, I don't know how you guys feel. It's to put a cliche in it. It's not. It's about the journey, getting from point A to point B. Very slow.
I would say it is, yeah. I mean, the moment-to-moment gameplay is walking through the countryside, occasionally coming up against these really ineffectual enemies, but really the gameplay is planning your route. You've got point A to point B, but you've got a map. You look at the terrain. What's the best way to get over there? Because on top of getting over that terrain, you can do a scan that shows terrain as either being fine to walk on, rough terrain, or really like bad terrain. It's kind of like a blue, a yellow, red.
And a red, yeah.
You've got rivers to ford. The deeper the river, the more dangerous it is. You've got things like all the cargo that you carry, and each package has durability, and you've got to get that the more durable, the higher the durability your package it has when you get there, the higher your score is on your delivery. But not only that, you've got equipment that you have to take. So you might think, right, okay, it's going to be really quick if I cut across this mountain range rather than walk all the way around it. But you're going to need to bring ladders, ropes, other bits of kit. And rather than just being in your endless bottomless pocket, they take up the slots and add weight like your cargo does. So everything has this consideration, and you got to plot it out. And it's like this real satisfaction of like figuring out a route and getting there successfully with your cargo intact. And it's interesting. And when anything you do, I don't know if you guys have noticed this, but this game is not interested in anything but positivity. Everything you do is positively reinforced. Every time you make a delivery, no matter how fucked up it is, the person who you deliver to is like, oh, just let me check the cargo.
Yeah, they're always very grateful for it. Yeah.
Oh wow, this is perfect. I'm like, motherfucker, it's got 2% left on it. But like everything about this game is positive reinforcement. How good are you? You're the best delivery guy. You're the person that's bringing us all together by keeping us all talking.
This game is brilliant for mental health. Yeah, absolutely. You can't go wrong.
Well, I think as well, it would be because of like the deliveries and how long they can take and how difficult they can be, that for something to go wrong and then you to get there, deliver, and then have a fail state or feel like a complete lack of accomplishment would be frustrating and disencouraging.
Well, absolutely. And I mean, it's I kind of, to put a spin on it now, can you imagine how much shit Royal Mail and postal workers get? I mean, I'm not saying their journey is mired by mule people that are trying to nick their packages and ghosts trying to kill them, but they could be just having just as hard time and delivering a package that might be damaged and no through fault of their own, and they just get a door slammed in their face or being told to fuck off, or they're going to take their name to the manager or something. It's crazy.
You're saying this game should have a difficulty setting for Royal Mail setting where you get
yeah, easy, medium, hard, and then post office level or Royal Mail level.
But yeah. And the positive reinforcement plays heavily into what is probably the best part of the game, and that is the Strand gameplay, the Strand system that Kojima's kind of talked about. He said that this is a new type of game. It's a Strand game. Now, while I still think that is a wanky quote and is part of
it is bullshit, completely.
This game uses like an enhanced version of what Dark Souls does with its messages, in that you can place kind of predetermined messages, which are like signposts stuck in the ground, like virtualized signposts that give you kind of messages of encouragement or advice, and you can like them. And if say I put a signpost down in my game, you guys might see it in your game. It's like it's semi-randomized who sees what.
Yeah.
And you could like it, and I get the likes, and it makes me feel good. And it comes with like a social media feed in the bottom left-hand corner. It's like, you got like 26 likes from this guy, or 300 people have seen your sign and liked it, or other bits and pieces. But not only does it extend to these signs, it takes it one step further than what Dark Souls ever did, in that the equipment, like the ladders, the ropes, bigger structures like roads that you can build reasonably early into the game, vehicles, all this stuff can be transposed into other people's games and liked as like, hey, this was really useful, thanks for that. I mean, there was a bit reasonably early in the game where you got access to a trike, and I was like gunning it. I kind of did one too many cycles with it, and it was about to run out of battery in the middle of nowhere. So not only would my bike be stranded, I would have to then pick up the packages, go slowly, about to hit BT territory. And I just saw a generator out in the wild somebody had placed. So I was able to get to it, recharge my bike, and then get home. And it's like, oh, this is so good. Like, he saved me. So like, just liked his generator as much as I possibly could.
Yeah,
it's such a hot...
Go on, I'll let you
go. That stuff, that is used to the Dark Souls stuff. All of that is in place to only filter through positive response to other people and their actions. You don't get people disliking what you've done, or you don't find anything of that.
There's no messages.
There's no way that people can kind of interfere with stuff that you've built, or they can take them down, or damage them, or destroy them, or make them ineffective. The whole idea is just,
all you're getting is positive feedback.
Exactly. All you ever get from other people is positive, and there's no kind of drawback to getting those stuff. You have a limitation as to things, as to what you can put down, as to kind of the ladders you can build, and the bridges you can make, and the ropes you can create, and the paths you can build. But other players and other people can put as much shit as they want down, and it won't affect anything you do. So it's a lovely idea. It's really wholesome. It's really like you guys said, just positive reinforcement to give this idea of making connections and making everyone stronger by working together.
But it also has this real kind of tangible benefit to everybody, because everybody gets like shit to use that they didn't have to pay for or bring with them. Like, you'll be wandering out trying to ford a river looking for the best spot. Oh shit, someone's dropped a ladder across it as a makeshift bridge. Hell, somebody's built a fucking bridge over it, and I can use that, and it's saved
always,
me so much trouble.
It's always handy, and it's always positive, and it's because everyone to a certain extent is struggling as well, trying to traverse terrain and stuff.
And I think what I really like about this is, while everybody is playing as Sam in their own game, in the lore, when somebody contributes to your structure or likes you, it's just another random porter, another courier out in the wild doing his own thing, liking your shit. So it even plays into the lore.
Yeah.
You're the trailblazer, but there's other people following in your wake, making use of this stuff and contributing in their own way.
Yeah, and as you kind of progress through the story, as you make more connections, all that kind of expands. So it, like you say, that's completely woven into the lore, with you being the at the front, at the very tip of the point, and kind of pushing through everything.
So you get the best of both worlds, though. You're not just rocking. If you played this game now from fresh, you just won't rock into a new area and it'll be littered with shit. You have to establish a presence there through the storyline in order to then see other people's things. And it's because Sam is the first person to kind of forge that path. But one thing I really like, and it's probably the most minor of things, is rather than just structures and things people are building. Well, first of all, you have the stupid little things, like if you sleep somewhere or rest somewhere, you get a little stone cairn stacking up in your spot. And if other people rest there, the cairn gets bigger and bigger. But if you have a piss somewhere, mushrooms start to grow. And I've seen some big fucking piles of mushrooms, so the more people that piss there, the bigger the mushroom pile. And there's some bloody big mushroom piles. But the thing I really like is natural pathways form in the landscape the more people that use that route. So if there is a particularly optimal route, people kind of just find it naturally, and because the game knows 600 people trek through this particular route, it starts carving the trail through the landscape.
Yeah.
And that's fucking cool, man.
It reinforces this notion that it's a team effort, which, as you see in the lore, because you're all porters, you're all trying to do deliveries. But in real life, it's as players, it's a team effort to try and contribute towards each other.
Yeah,
because it benefits really you and them. It's it's the execution of that is fantastic.
Yeah, I can't see how someone would play this offline. I mean, you do get NPCs that build stuff and help you out, but
you'd be missing out.
It shines with the online connectivity. Yeah, absolutely. This absolutely shines with the online capabilities, and it's very light. You'll never see another player online, or you'll never really connect with somebody on your friends. At least I haven't seen anyone.
No, I've not seen any of your stuff. I looked through my list of people
connections made.
Yeah, because you can make connections with people, which means you're more likely to see their structures in the world, and you got a limit of 20 or so. I don't know if that increases over the course of the game. I think it might, but you guys aren't in the list for me, and nobody on my friends list is. It's all just random people, so I'm not sure how that works, but it's kind of a shame. I would like to have seen your stuff. It would have been cool to be able to talk. I'm like, oh yeah, I found your bridge over this river, and you're like, oh yeah, I did put that down, but I haven't been able to do that. I think the one thing that is frustrating is about the gameplay, and it generally comes down to the sensitivity of to put it lightly, this game feels like playing fucking co-op sometimes.
Yeah, that's a really good comparison to. God, yeah, especially when you've got a huge container or containers on your back, and you carry stuff in each hand, and
it can make them deliveries very kind of stressful and very suspenseful.
I think sometimes more like I'm leaning towards frustrating at times. Like you've got to basically you can as if you just kind of walk or you run, you get more and more unstable or less stable, might be a better way to put it. And you can tip over, and if you tip over, you fall over, spill your packages, damage them. So you've got to kind of balance using the left and right triggers, or you can hold the triggers down to kind of brace yourself, but it slows your pace down. And I found that generally just bracing myself and kind of marching on was the best way forward because I did not want to play a quap for 2 kilometers in the fucking rain with ghosts attacking me. It's just it's a
Yeah,
little bit
I
too
just hold
twitchy.
both triggers. I just hold both triggers down, and then you're safe.
Yeah, I'm sure that you can
I
get an
will say
add-on for
that
your. Sure, you can
as
get an
you
add-on for your
progress,
controller where you just 2 plastic nibs that just pull the R2 or the L2 buttons down.
just sellotape the buttons down. That's all you got to
Yeah.
do.
Yeah, it'd be the best thing to do. We've kind of talked on the gameplay. I mean, we've not covered everything because that's where the meat of this game is. I think the story we can't. The story's the other major aspect of it but we don't want to talk about it too much at the moment and can't talk at length about it anyway.
No, I will say the characters are fantastic.
Yeah.
The
I just would last thing on the gameplay. It's very light on survival as well, so you get kind of meters and survival aspects to manage. Now, I'm not really into survival games, but I found this completely manageable and very, very.
It's not. There's not too much of it. It's not
weird
like
though because when you look at it, Maddie, I'd argue that it looks fucking ridiculous. Your boots wear out. You know there's all like you've got fucking like
your boots wear out. You have
different resources to look.
I don't know if you guys know, but you have a center of gravity as well that you can shift around. So it's like playing 3D version of Resident Evil inventory management as well. And then there's kind of other things. You've got a canteen with drink that kind of restores your vitality, but you need to go and restore that every so often. But I've never been great at survival games and never really appealed to me, but this is absolutely fine. This is kind of completely imaginable. Overwhelming.
It's got a balanced. Pardon the pun. It's got a balance well done here.
Yep.
It could so easily have been frustrating. Yeah.
Yeah.
It could so easily have been less.
They're there to make the game more thoughtful, but never feel like they get in the way. At least I never felt they did. But just to quickly wrap up because we've been going on quite a while now, and this was just meant to be our initial impressions. We've touched on it before, but this is a beautiful fucking looking game. The graphics are very, very
incredible. Yeah, that Decima engine.
It's impressive. The Fox engine for Phantom Pain was a beauty, and this. I think this might look better. I don't think it performs quite as well, but it fucking looks gorgeous. But again, it's on the PlayStation 4. The PC version's coming out in the spring. It will be interesting to see what it looks like there.
Yeah, I mean it's 30 frames per second, so not as performant as the Fox engine, which makes me think
it's a very solid frame rate though.
Yeah.
It is. I mean, it makes me think that though, if somehow this was on the Fox engine, would it look better? Because you could kind of trade off the 60 FPS for 30 FPS, but then kind of go to town on the detail. And Fox engine was fucking fantastic in terms of how it looked, especially on the character models and things. But Decima, this is great. Like I said before, Horizon Zero Dawn environments were lovely, and I think that's probably why Hideo Kojima chose this engine because he was really impressed with kind of how they did the world building.
I think the character models are fantastic as well because they pretty much everybody in this game is a well-known actor or at least a public figure of some kind.
Yep.
And they all look fantastic. They all look like their real-life counterparts. It doesn't have that uncanny valley aspect that games have, generally speaking. It's just very, very good. This is a beautiful game. The style of it definitely feels kind of akin to Metal Gear in its art style.
Yeah.
But it's very cool. A lot of the tech in the game is very cool.
I would say it's very Japanesey because it's like Japanesey trying to be American because Metal Gear Solid had a lot of that, and there's other games that do that as well, and this kind of does that many, many times.
I mean, it's the same or similar art team to Metal Gear, so it's understandable, but it doesn't feel like necessarily just
it doesn't detract from it at all.
But it is that kind of anime, sci-fi kind of. Everyone's wearing that anime sci-fi jumpsuit and the weird.
There's a lot of anime influence in it. Yeah.
Oh god, yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Generally,
I mean, like you say with the environment as well, you're spending 99% of your time there. It has to look great. It has to look good. You can't get sick of it. You have to keep discovering new places, new biomes, new kind of structures, new ways of getting around. And I mean, the scale, especially in the chapter 3 where you are, it's fucking massive. But there's
it's
always,
huge.
I'm never kind of bored of just kind of going from point A to point B, and that's a really impressive feat to do.
Yeah, but definitely a looker. This is the type of game you kind of expect at the end of a console generation, which we are now entering.
Yeah.
So it's beautiful. It's definitely up to Kojima's kind of legacy in that regard. So yeah, Decima. I wouldn't be upset to see it being used more widely. It's a beautiful, very capable.
Well,
engine.
they've announced Horizon Zero Dawn 2. Effectively, they were doing jobs searching on Guerrilla Games, so I imagine this is not the last we've seen on it.
Well, yes, I think this is something that it's probably like the Rage engine for Rockstar. It's something they've built to last for a long time.
Yeah, I think it'll adapt well into the next generation.
Or Bethesda's fucking engine, but let's not.
Yes, okay, that's probably the opposite end of the spectrum. Really, there's a time to move on, really, which was 10 years ago. But anyway, yeah. So to be honest, I think that wraps up. I think that wraps up our kind of initial impressions. Unless anyone else has got something burning to get off.
I look forward to seeing what your thoughts and opinions are as you progress further in the game.
I think what we need to do is when we finish this, we come back and we spoil the shit out of it, and we go kind of what we think about it all. I think that's probably the next best step. The only thing I do want to get off my chest about this game is the soundtrack. It is spectacular. It is phenomenal. And it keeps getting better.
Listening to it, there's a Spotify playlist called Timefall, and it is the entire soundtrack. It's the original music and the licensed music. So if you're interested, go and listen to that. It's very atmospheric. But yeah, the music is really cool. I have really enjoyed that.
Yeah, it's perfect. It's very haunting. It's very fit for the themes as well. And there's kind of a range of them. So yeah,
used very sparingly as well, so it's very effective when it is used. But yeah, so I think generally on the whole, it feels like we're all reasonably positive around Death Stranding. I didn't expect to be, so I am pleasantly surprised.
Yeah, you are probably the most skeptical of all three. I mean, I'll be upfront. I'm probably was the biggest fanboy of Hideo Kojima here, so I was on board for whatever. So it's good to hear that you're now a fanboy. Well, you're enjoying it, and you've kind of not been disappointed.
No, definitely not. It's I was reserved in my excitement and my anticipation, and it's exceeding that. So that's good news. But yeah, I definitely agree, guys. We will come back and probably do a full-on review roundtable when we finish the game and spoil the shit out of it and talk about the story a little bit more. So we spent a week stranded in the land of the dead, and it sounds like we're loving it.